Hi, everyone. It's Jim at Athlete Builder. I want to talk about Coy Anderson. He's our guest today in studio. He's one of our former athletes at Unbreakable Athletics until he moved on to bigger and better things. He was a two-sport athlete in high school, baseball and football. Played a little bit of college football before he decided to forego all that, and he entered the U.S. Army. He's now a Ranger, still in the U.S. Army. He's an E5. He's a sergeant over there currently. He was home on leave recently, so we had a chance to get together with him, come by, train a little bit, and just kind of catch up. Big guy on mental toughness, physical fitness, endurance. He's one of those guys that likes to outlast others, uh, hold on to more pain more than others will do. So we learned a lot about things that he's been through over the last few years. We've seen him grow up inside and outside the gym, and when he moved away, it's been great watching him just blossom and flourish. So a lot of things covered today and learned a lot. Really enjoyed catching him up, and I hope you guys enjoy the episode too. All right, let's get started. Welcome to the Athlete Builder podcast, where we are forging unbreakable athletes. We are back in the library today. I have with me my teammate, Lucas Lorian. Say hello. Good. And then today's guest, one of our own, Coy Anderson.
Hey, how's it going?
Good to have you guys in today. Right off the bio, it says you're a fire team leader in the U.S. Army. What does fire team leader mean?
So fire team leader, that's just, I'm in charge of 3 or 4 dudes, within the elements within the U.S. Army. There's platoons, squads, fire teams. I'm down to the lowest element. I'm a leader of half of a squad, essentially. So,
Why is it called fire? Because it's
call it team leader.
team leader. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're not in charge of like flamethrowers, things like that from back in the day.
No, not at all.
Dang, had higher hopes right from the get-go. Well, hello everybody. We were lucky to have Coy in these last 2 weeks. He was in town, so I took advantage and said, hey, if you have a moment, let's get together. Let's talk about a few things. We've enjoyed working with him and his family over the years, learned a lot, gave a lot, and the main premise of the show is that we're building athletes, and Coy is an excellent athlete in a lot of ways, and we're always looking for parallels, more information. We're always looking for ways to get better, and having Coy on with some of his experience at a young age of 26, I'm really looking forward to hearing some of his insights on things. So right from the get-go, Coy, let's bring the audience up to speed. You're 26. We started training you at Unbreakable at what age?
I think it was my sophomore year of high school, so 16, 17.
Yeah, so about 9 years ago. And you came right over with Dustin.
Yeah, with Dustin. I was working out at Plainfield High School, training for all my sports and doing what they had me do. And a guy named Zane Fakes was partnered with Dustin, and he was always like kind of at me about coming over to Unbreakable, just being under their direct supervision and like doing what they directly had me do. And I gave it a try one time and I found out I wasn't doing things the right way. So,
Sure.
But yeah,
That's how we started
with him.
You know where Zane is now?
Yeah, Zane, has something to do with the strength and conditioning coach with the Indianapolis Colts.
That's right. Yeah. He went back, got his master's at Ball State, and then he parlayed that and then got a job with the Colts and is stuck. So he's been great. Super athletic family too.
Yeah, his brother was probably
Tyron.
He would tell you that's probably the better athlete of the two. But
right. But the mindset was different with Zane.
A little bit.
little bit. So you finish high school, and then it was off to college to play football, and that was Georgetown College.
Yep, it's a small NAIA school in Lexington, Kentucky.
And then you were there. Was it 1 year, one season, or
Yep,
two?
just 1 year. Showed up there in 2016, played 1 year of football, and I guess you could say I quit.
Gotcha. You were a linebacker, running
Yeah,
back.
yeah, I played linebacker. Quickly found out that there's a huge gap between hard work and like legitimate talent. I wouldn't say that's the reason why I walked away from football, but um, that was my short-term experience, I guess.
Sure. And then in high school, what other sports did you play?
Just baseball.
Baseball. Gotcha. So after your freshman year at Georgetown, you opted out, and then what happened next?
So in my head, I was always gonna pursue something in the military that wasn't out of what my family has done in the past or anything. It was just something that I knew matched my mindset, my purpose in life. I thought it was a good path to follow. My parents were initially not very happy with that. So I kind of selected to meet them halfway, and I joined the National Guard. I
Gotcha.
was like, Mom, I'll go to school still, but I'm also going to try this military thing out.
And they were, I'm guessing, if they were like my parents, because I heard a similar story, was don't join up, you're going to get hurt or you're going to die, right?
Yeah, which is not the case whatsoever.
So,
And
most jobs in the military aren't in harm's way, right?
no,
But some are,
Some are.
right? We'll get to that later. Right. So that was nice that you compromised and met your family halfway. Was that, looking back, would you rather have still made that same decision?
So looking back on it, I lucked out, and with the leadership I had in the National Guard, I was able to pursue what I really wanted. I guess it was like, in hindsight, it was the best decision because I put myself with a leader that was willing to do whatever he could to get me to where I wanted. Um, my ultimate goal was to be a ranger, and I guess we could get into that, but I showed up in the National Guard, and my first sergeant at the time had served in 3rd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment in the early 2000s. He saw that I was a harder worker than everybody else in the unit. I did okay on a PT test.
By okay, let's be a little more accurate there.
I mean, right now, I would not be proud of the numbers, but compared to everyone else in my unit, it was better.
Sure.
Yeah.
Coy is quite humble, which is impressive, but he has, when it comes to anything competitive, it could be playing Yahtzee or whatever, he's going to try to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So starting off National Guard, you quickly, I don't want to put words in your mouth, we're enjoying the experience, was consistently looking for more, had some leadership that was mentoring you, and next thing you know, you're gravitating towards the Ranger program.
Yeah. So there's a difference between going to Ranger school and being a Ranger.
Sure.
So Ranger school, anyone in the United States military can attend. It's a quote unquote 62-day course that you get put through, and if you graduate, you earn your Ranger tab. that makes you Ranger qualified. Whatever that means, it's kind of like a pat on the back for learning how to starve a little bit and not sleep
Gotcha.
and continue to walk. But what I really wanted was to be an actual Ranger. You can't do that in the National Guard. But I knew if I wanted to do that, having a Ranger tab was going to help me out. So I went to my first sergeant. I asked to go to Ranger school to get my tab, and he did what he had to do to allow me to go.
Awesome. So getting the tab, I don't want to trivialize or minimize it, but in terms of validation, it's like getting your car's learning permit. You can get started, but you don't qualify to actually drive a vehicle legally. You don't qualify to be an actual Ranger unless you're selected and go through everything, and then you're brought in to those teams.
Essentially, that's a good way to put it. So Ranger school in the Army is essentially a leadership course. You're learning how to be tired and hungry and to get others to do what you would like them to do to accomplish a mission.
Sure.
That's really all it is.
And some will say or assume that you can, if you have a higher rank, you simply just legislate, hey, do this. But in talking with other folks, that it might work one time, but weeks and months and years later, you won't get consistent performance from folks unless you get some buy-in to actually perform towards the actual mission.
100%. What's good about Ranger school that I like is that you take off all rank. The people that show up, they could be a staff sergeant in the Army working with a private in the Army. They don't necessarily know. But at some point, they're going to have to perform for each other in order for both of them to get through the course.
Gotcha. So why did all that evolve that way? Why the Ranger program? Why not the SEAL program? Why not the Green Berets?
I think I just went to the Army recruiter first.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, could have went to selection at some point for SF and to be a Green Beret, but to be in the Ranger Regiment, the people that I saw or met at Ranger School,
Sure.
They were like me, and I had a first sergeant that had been there, so that was the route I was going with.
Awesome. So how did we rectify the compromise with mom and dad? Hey, I'm just gonna go the route where you're in the National Guard, and now, hey mom, I'm gonna be a Ranger. See you later.
Yeah, I think it took me a while to convince myself that I'm over 18 and I could do essentially what I want to do.
Right.
I think half of me just wanted to do what I wanted to do, but also wanted to make my parents proud. Their vision was for me to have a degree, have a, I guess, firm job.
Sure.
You know, but
it's a basic American dream that's told to most kids: go to school, go to college, get a job, get married, have your kids and dog.
Yeah. And essentially that's a good life and maybe where we all want to end up, but I knew I had more to offer, and I knew that there was a better place for me to be to kind of force the outcome of the person I wanted to be. You know, like I wasn't going to get that in the National Guard. There was no one there that was kind of holding me accountable, setting the example that I wanted to be. I wanted to surround myself with people that are better than me.
Gotcha. It's a different level of commitment, obviously. National Guard is not a full-time job Being in the Army is a full-time job, and then being a Ranger is even more advanced. And it seems like your identity called for more.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah. And I identify with the not realizing you're 18 or you're not mature enough yet or you're pleasing others. That's why it says in the gym on the ceiling, temet nosce, which is Latin for know yourself. Because there's plenty of times personally where maybe I wasn't living for myself or for some others, made some bad choices, and next thing you know, it impacts you 2 or 3 years down the road, or it impacts you financially in a great way. When I went to Purdue from Cleveland, so I'm out of state, and it was to go to engineering school because I was good at math and science, and I always wanted to run a business instead. And everyone said, go to engineering school, go to engineering school. So I looked at Michigan, Cincinnati, and Purdue, and they all let me in, and I picked Purdue, and I hated it. I hated engineering. You're just solving problems on paper. And 3 semesters later, I was invited not to return and had to transfer schools. So I went to Purdue's business school, and I wanted to be in business anyways. So it was a need that was unmet, but lying to myself cost me 3 semesters and a bunch of money.
Yeah, I think there's a common thing between, like, of all people, that it's hard to tell people that you care about no.
Right.
Um, that could be parents, that could be friends, that could be the world or the influences around you. Telling them no, not living up to their ideals, it's kind of, I don't know, it could set you back a lot. And you talk about knowing yourself, you really have to find out who you are, find out what you want in life, find out how you want to impact others, and create that path for yourself. That's essentially like kind of what flipped my mind to doing what I wanted to do.
Right. And once you're in doing what you want, isn't it so much easier? Like you're not living this lie. You know that you're attacking and going for things that are important to you. It makes it easy to like be all in.
Yeah, and the only person you're gonna let down is yourself.
That's it.
Yeah,
Right. And then in your 20s, that's the time to make a ton of mistakes when there's not a lot of repercussions. There's time left to fix it.
yeah, yep.
Yeah. One of the things I take my athletes through is what I call the 7 levels of why. And it's my favorite question when they come to the gym is, why are you here? And if it's an athlete trying to play in high school or college, they'll say, well, I'm trying to get better. And I'll say, why? And they say, well, I need to get stronger. I go, well, why? He says, well, I'm too slow on the court. I need to add some more strength. I'm like, well, why is that important? You're still playing varsity. Well, I'm playing varsity, but I'm not leading the conference. Okay, well, why is that important? And they finally get fed up and say, damn it, I want to play in college and I'm not good enough right now, so I need to make that happen. But it takes about 5, 6, 7, 8 levels before they say, hey, this is what I really want. So it's interesting that you said, I want to be in the Ranger program because I'm around some like-minded folks. They seem to push the physicality as a component, and it's a high level of leadership and execution. And it's like, that's what I'm looking for. And you finally found that. Is that right?
Yeah, that was right. I think over the past 3 years of being in this organization, I've kind of found my why is essentially serving other people to the best ability that you can. And you can kind of transfer that into an athlete's mindset of being the best teammate that they essentially can be. And that goes from the very first time they put on a football helmet or the cleats or whatever they're playing to if they make it to the professional level. If you go into every day with the mindset of how am I going to serve the guy next to me the best? What can I do today be the best teammate, you're going to win every single day.
Sure.
And I don't think it should essentially be, I need to get better. I want to get better. I want to be the best. It's, what's the team looking for? How am I going to what am I going to take my strengths, my weaknesses, and put them in the best spot or
chance to make an impact.
Yeah. And
so
that could be
shutting down defense or shutting down an offense or taking this building, right?
100%.
No one gets there alone.
No. And I think you have to find your strengths. Obviously, you have to attack your weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to put yourself in the spot that you're going to impact the best. I'll put it in a direct example of me. I love fitness. I love running. I love training, essentially. I love physically getting better. There's people in my team, my squad, that are very good tactically. Okay, that's making decisions whenever we have to do things like through training, whatever. They're going to run the classes. They're going to handle the training sessions when we're talking about performing tactically. When we wake up for PT every morning, the whole squad will look to me to figure out what we have to do to get better physically. That's my strength. Now, every day when we're training Ranger tasks, when we're trying to get better as a squad, as a team, as a platoon, I'm going to put myself in the best spot to learn as much as I can.
Sure. So a very typical term in MBA school is a SWOT analysis, and you hear it in outside MBA school and plenty of other businesses and lines of work is what's your strengths, what's your weaknesses, what opportunities do you have, and what are your threats. And so your best strength is your competitive advantage, and that's what you want to maximize and win. In business, an easy example is Walmart's competitive advantage is that it's the cheapest, right? That's how they win. So if your competitive advantage is leading and doing things physical, the way you make your biggest impact is getting your whole team physically ready. On the same token, the next step on your weakness is the weakest link in the chain breaks it. If you're so bad tactfully that you're actually a liability, then you can't really be utilized on the team. So you can't have your weakness holding you back. So you have to work on that as well.
100%. It's important to always attack the weaknesses.
It's also at least fun. Everybody likes to do the strengths and get that even better because that's what's dominating folks until you realize that your weaknesses holds back the entire team.
Well, it also takes a huge account of humility and surrendering your ego.
Right. And it's when the goal is bigger than you, it's pretty easy. The goal is to stop this entire team with this goal line stand. The goal is to take this building with no casualties and achieve your objective. If the goal is I'm making the play and you're not in position, then you put people at risk. So when you guys take the team first approach, it makes everything pretty easy.
Yeah. How am I going to make the team better?
The team better, yeah. And then the threats, honestly, if you can find threats that don't utilize ego as the weakness, those are pretty rare.
Yeah.
Because usually the main threats is someone's ego or some company's ego or some CEO or some leader's ego getting in the way.
Yes, essentially. And I think wherever you go in life, whatever organization you put yourself with, you're going to have those.
Sure.
So I also think it's important to learn how to work with individuals that may not see things the way you see them, that may not be able to look within, know themselves, understand their weaknesses. You have to be able to adapt to everyone around you. It's another way to be the best teammate you can be. You know?
For sure. Over your few years in, so the obvious question, it seems that you're liking what you're doing. is the 20-year military plan, is that going to be you?
I don't know if there's a way to say no comment on a podcast.
I guess no comments the answer. So maybe, or to be determined. And it's
Yeah,
hard, right? It's like saying how many kids you're going to have. Well, I don't have any yet, so let's see how the first one goes, right?
yeah. I think it's hard to look 20 years in the future. I will say that I grow every day. It's hard not to get better in a place that I'm in, but there's also times and places like that you want to break from it. So yeah, we'll
Probably
see.
true with anything, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see. Gotcha. All right. So you touched on a lot of things, and I think we've talked, off this podcast before about the book we're putting out and how there's different components for building an athlete and the parallels with people in the military, people in business, or athletes. And what I'm telling folks is that in your head, there's your mindset, which dictates how you do things. It's how aggressive you want to be, how passive you want to be, how you deal with shortfalls. Then there's your knowledge in the sport, or in your case, what you're trying to do tactfully. And then there's your teammates. How do you communicate and handle folks? And physically in your body, there's three more. It's what goes in, that's your nutrition. How do you train your body physically? And then how do you recover? And then for the athlete or the soldier, there's your playbook that you carry along that has your plan that you're always adjusting to get you to evolve to that next iteration. So one of the main premises with this show is that we want to bring on athletes, coaches, people in the military that have a physical agenda, and we're looking for just one or two insights on all six of those areas. Cool. So I start with mindset because it definitely leads everything and guides everything. One or two lessons you like to impose or impress upon everyone here about mindset.
Yeah, I think mindset. It really just, I don't know. We could.
We spend a whole day on that one alone.
Yeah, I just think you have to understand the why behind things.
Sure.
You have to know why you want something. There's a thing that's intentionality. It's one thing to show up every day, do things every day, do the reps every day, but the mindset to have intentionality with what you're doing to reach your goal, that's, I think, is important. That's one thing that I keep in my mind. Why am I doing this right now? Okay, I want to increase my 5-mile time. What do I need to do that? Over the course of the next 3 months, I have to do this day, this day, and it goes on.
Sure.
I can't just wake up every morning and run 5 miles. There needs to be an intentional plan to wake up every day and have the mindset, what am I doing today to reach the goals that I have in the future?
I just watched this video from Schwarzenegger, and he was asked, how did you beat those other guys at bodybuilding that were training right alongside you? He said, yeah, I'd spend 4 hours in the gym, and the guy next to me would spend 4 hours in the gym, and we're both working hard. And he's not screwing around, and neither am I, Schwarzenegger said, but on each set and rep, he would physically think or mentally think about what that muscle needs to do, and he just tried to put everything into each set and rep with a high level of intensity, even on the warm-ups. And where some people are a little more casual about their approach, he was very intentional on every set and rep, and he says that was the last thing I could control because we're eating the same, we're built similarly, we're lifting similar weights, but I just was really intense looking for those results.
Yeah, so there's a quote that I like. I don't know who said it, but it's lack of intentionality leads to a repetition of what is easiest. I
Right.
think how you just said the word casual there, and there's a lot of people at everyday gyms They show up every single day. What do you do with the hour that you go into the gym with? What do you do with the hour and a half practice that you show up at? It has to be intentional.
Sure.
And if you don't have intention, you're going to fall back to
Your
what
default
feels
to your
good.
level of training. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you going to just ride the bike for an hour? Or do you want to do 5x5 on bench, hit a Metcon to supplement your bench press? Like,
Sure.
there's intention behind people's training sessions, behind practices, that's going to lead to better results than just showing up every day.
Right.
Yeah, so.
And the more days you can string together like that, the more you move the needle. It's impossible to be 100% all in on every day. Some days you're just kind of broken in half and you're getting it done. But the more days you can be very intense, the better results. On the knowledge piece, I remember I'm playing basketball for my freshman team and overly not strong. I'm asking my dad, hey, I'm getting pushed around. I'm playing the low post. I'm playing the 5. What do I need to get stronger and so I'm not getting pushed around? And he said, man, I don't know. Push-ups, I guess. I was like, got it. Okay, that's new.
How many push-ups did you do?
Yeah, I'm doing like sets of 10, thinking that's a pretty good deal, right? I was this tall, 6'3", 190 at 14, and I'm getting pushed around, and it was weak. And I'm willing to do work, and I had no idea. There's no knowledge. This is what I should do. I didn't have Dustin screaming at me or get me strong or fast. I just asked my dad, and he said, just do push-ups. And I was like, well, turns out there's more than that. Talk a little bit about the knowledge component with athletes or to perform. You might be intentional, but not know what you're doing.
So I think, just like anything, you want to gain as many perspectives as you can. You're literally doing that with this podcast. You're going to interview a ton of people to find out what's in their minds, what drives them, what makes them great. You have to do that same thing when you're trying to find the answers on how to get better. You can't just go to the person that looks fit or go to your coach and say, what do I need to do? You do that, and then you do that to another person and another person and see what's a consistent answer. You can find a bunch of different perspectives to learn from to get better. I think just knowledge-wise, you have to understand that you don't know what you need to know, and that one individual person is also not going to know everything.
Sure.
So the more you can branch out, the more perspectives you can find. And it's a lot easier in today's world because we have social media to log on to, and you can see.
Well, it's easier and harder because you have a lot of idiots on both.
Yeah, and you also don't know.
You don't know.
You have
right.
so many options
Sure.
to work out to get better. It's hard to pick what's the right path.
Mm-hmm. Well, I go back to what you said when you were looking at the Ranger battalion. You're like, hey, I had this mentor who looked out for me. He knew more than me. So one key critical component is finding some mentor or coach and learning whatever that person has. And you sponge everything out of their brain and you do it again to the next coach or the next leader. And they say it's 10,000 hours or 10 years. You pump all that in your head. Now you're probably not a beginner anymore.
Yeah, I think it's super important to have a mentor. Once you find that individual that cares about you, that's going to invest their time into you, they're not going to pat you on the back every day. They're going to do what they have to do to get you better. But once you find that person, that's the person you follow. And I've had different mentors over the course of my life. I think it really started out with Dustin.
Mm-hmm.
He really taught me how to push through pain, not overwork me, but work with a purpose. That fluctuated to the leader that I had in the National Guard. He embodied to me what it looked like to be a great teammate, to be someone that shows up every day to serve the person next to him. And then now I have a first line leader that I show up to work every day and I want to be him. I want to do what he can do in all aspects of the job.
That's more, I always say you want an accountability ally, not a friend.
100%.
The friends will say, hey, it's okay if you miss that because they want you to come down to their level.
Your mom is always going to be there.
That's right. Right. Your mom's always going to be there. But if you have an ally, they're going to say, hey, that shit's not okay. We have an objective here. We're trying to win today.
Yep.
So that level of teammate is critical. And there are support teammates, family and friends. And then there's your leadership team, how you deal with your coaches or your lieutenants. And then there's actual people in your unit or on your squad, whether you're playing a sport or on the battlefield. And all three are critical.
100%.
So even the parents that are taking the kids to practice, man, kids, just one time, turn to your mom and dad and say, hey, thank you.
Yes, 100%. And my parents, I kind of put the perspective that they led me in the wrong direction. They gave me the ability to learn what it means to be a teammate. They put me in the environment around good kids to grow up with. They paid for everything I needed. They sent me to a great school in a great town. And that set me up for success. If I understand all kids don't have that, and I'm very grateful for that. But there also has to be a point where you look to people that are better than you for guidance, to push yourself to be the best person you can be. Parents give you the foundation, you create the future.
They can only do so much, right?
100%.
Same thing with your coach.
Yep.
You're still the one on the field having to perform, and the greatest thing for your parents and your coaches, those are the few folks that want you to be better than them.
Yeah, 100%. It all comes down to like how much the individual themselves. Like, so for everyone who's listening to this podcast, you may get all types of advice, insight, different mindsets, different approaches to training, mentality. None of it means anything if you as an individual don't apply it to your own life. You know, I could read a million books. If I don't apply one single topic or piece of advice, not one of them meant a thing, you know?
What's even worse is they actually know better because they read it and still didn't do it.
Yeah.
So they increased their knowledge and didn't have the discipline to execute.
100%. Oof.
Right. So you want to go the training route next? Or do you want to go right into the fun ones like nutrition and recovery?
On a version of all these, I'm going to be slightly hypocritical with my own life because,
right.
I mean, I know I overtrain. I would say most people in my organization do overtrain. But yeah, we'll get into all of them.
So when you're overtraining, it means you can't recover enough to perform the same task the next day, or you're deteriorating overall.
Yeah, and you're hitting a plateau. And
plateaus are given to occur no matter what. Everyone hits those. Now, if you stay at them for a long time, that you go back to your knowledge piece, what has to be changed up, right?
All right.
So you're saying people are overtraining where you're at. What's that? You said you also like running. Help me understand, because the Coy I knew and trained a long time ago looked at a 400-meter run and said, hell no, I'm not doing that. Now, didn't you do Goggins' 48 hours deal?
I did that.
That's 4 hours, or it's 4 miles every 4 hours for 2 straight days. 48 hours. 4 miles every 4 hours. It's 48 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you also ran an ultra?
Yeah, I just did my first quote-unquote ultra.
50 miles?
Yeah, 50 miles. I'd say it's not really seen as an ultra marathoner until you complete 100. But
there's always someone saying whatever you're doing is not good enough.
Yeah, myself.
It's Probably yourself. Fun.
No, but yeah, we can talk about.
How do we evolve from I'm not running ever in my life more than the 40-yard time to I'm going to do a 50K or 50-mile race?
So there was a point where running did suck.
Sure.
I knew that joining the army, you're gonna have to figure out how to run a little bit. Like, you don't have to be great, but you do need to not hurt as bad when you're running. Yeah, playing football, I was training to run 40 meters.
4 to 6 seconds, A to B.
Yeah, I guess I'm in the army lingo, but 40 yards.
Right.
But yeah, that 10-second burst, that 10-second of like strong power, strength, and that over time, as I ran more, I got more into running. It started to feel better, and it's a sense of, I wouldn't even call it like meditation, but you have it gets to be fun at some point, and you get to grow a lot mentally running. You figure out the harder you go, the longer you go, the more difficult it is, and the more you learn about yourself.
There's only you and your voice in your head when you're running, unless you got your headphones on. So without that, which you probably can't have when you're out there on the battlefield, you might need to listen to some other things. So that long ruck, that long run, that long march, you're in your head a lot. And then you learn more and more about yourself because you're actually quiet in your own thoughts.
Yeah,
I'm wondering what your head says.
I don't know. There's a lot.
I'm sure it's not good.
I mean, when you're running for 10 hours, a lot of things go through your mind. But I mean, essentially, it's just a sense of control. I wake up every morning and run, regardless of how my legs feel. That's where I kind of get into like the quote unquote overtraining.
Sure.
But I know that I'm making my body more durable over time. If I have a choice to run or lift each day, I'm going to run. I feel better running. I'm going to. That's kind of backstabbing where I used to be, you know. But most days, I figure out how to do both. The job that I have, I think the most important thing to have is endurance. The more strength you have with that endurance, the more optimal of a teammate you are. But I think the base is endurance.
Yeah. The point of training for an athlete isn't to have the big squat or the 40-yard time. It's to enable them to perform physically at the highest level in their endeavor. So if it's a receiver, he's going over the middle, he's going to go up, catch the ball, and withstand a hit, and then run towards the end zone. And then for your line of work, a 12-hour mission happens, a 24-hour, 48-hour, 96-hour things happen. You have to be able to be uncomfortable for a long amount of time and physically handle that. You're not running so you're the best runner. You're running so you can perform your job at the highest level.
Yeah, I will be the first to say I'm not even close to the best runner out there. Even in my own organization, there are people better than me. But I try to find that middle ground to where I can, I would say, lift with the lifters and run with the runners. You know, there's in my job, you carry weight a lot over long periods of time, long days, in heat that really sucks. It's important to have this strength to withstand all of that. But if you can't walk a long time in 100-degree heat, if you can't run, do sprints over and over with weight on, you're no good.
You're no good. And you're not useful as a teammate. You're not useful in your role, and then essentially, you would get cut.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, if we're running that much in the heat, I always tell people it's not how hard can you train, it's how hard can you train, recover, and train hard again. So once you're done training or punishing or tearing yourself down. Like recovery has got to be the first thing that we're working on.
Yeah, I mean, it's in my mind all the time. I prep my meals every day. I wake up, I have carbs, I have protein before I run, I have electrolytes, I have protein, I have carbohydrates, fats after I run. I eat big meals, I eat frequently, and I drink before I'm thirsty, and I eat before I eat. I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a dietitian, but I think it's important that you have a plan that you're not necessarily married to, but you have something to stay aligned each and every day and like keep you on the path towards your goals. What I've struggled with nutrition is I've gotten so married to three particular meals or the amount of food that I need during the day. And when I don't hit that, or if I hit more or less, I'll feel guilty. If I have a piece of
You'll feel
pizza,
guilty, or you don't feel like you can perform optimally.
I would say I feel guilty. Let's say I had the option to eat a pizza, or I had the option to eat, I don't know, beef, rice, chicken, rice, like the
Right,
meal
vegetables.
that athletes eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I eat the piece of pizza, I'm gonna feel. I used to feel guilty about it. I because it's not aligned with my plan. I think there's a balance with nutrition because you have to be able to find a plan that you're able to sustain for the rest of your life. That's important. You talk to a bodybuilder, they go on these super strict macronutrient based diets for a period of time to get themselves in the best physique that they possibly can. But what do they do after that show? What do they do when they're out of season? You know,
Sure.
they're not continuously following what they were for the 6 to 8 months that they were training. They have themselves some freedom. It's best for an athlete to find that plan that they can sustain for a long amount of time.
I was talking to Dustin the other day, and it's been a while now. I told him about the SWOT analysis, and all he said was sustainability. With his workers at Geodis, he's like, I want to put them on a regimen where the worker can sustain this pace. And then Atomic Habits, you'll hear them say that you can't improve your habit until you have it. And it's great to go balls out and you do well on Monday and Tuesday, but you can't train Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday because you wrecked yourself. That's not sustainable. And even with talking with other college football teams, they'll grade out their players on everything during fall practice. And they'll say, hey, they'll grade how hydrated they are, how many calories they took on, how much protein, how they did in practice, what they lifted, how many hours of sleep. They're measuring everything, right? And they'll say a win for you is 80% compliant. We know that 20% all you need to have that buffer, and that has to be your average. So that 20% you should be able to give you some kind of leeway every day. And one day maybe you're at 75 because the 2 prior days you're at 95. But it has to be sustainable. Otherwise, people just fade out. You'll see at the gym in CrossFit, they'll start out really strong, and then a year into it, they're like, oh man, all the PRs aren't happening every day. I actually have to work at it, and it's not sustainable. And in your line of work, sustainability is critical. And same thing with an athlete until they retire. Can you keep going and make small incremental improvements versus all the ups and downs and the yo-yos from going balls out and then fading away? It's just you just don't make the gains over time.
Yeah, there's a quote that I kind of fall back to a lot. It came from a podcast I watched, Nick Bear's podcast, and it came from one of his running coaches. But it's occasionally good. I messed that up. It's consistently good over occasionally great. And it's that consistent, 80%. That consistent, like, you have buffers on each side of you, but you're putting 100% that day that you have, you're 100% that day,
Sure.
every single day. That 100% is different.
Right.
One day you're performing at 100%, that's your actual 100%. The next day you're 100% that day, maybe you're 70%.
Sure, because you're wrecked. Yeah, so even I know we talk about being intense about getting results, but sometimes getting a score of 50% is just so much better than getting a 0 and totally punting and say, I'm not going to do anything, I'm just staying today, and say, no, hey, at least I'm going to go in here and get this done. Because it keeps your streak going. And even accumulating 10, 50% days versus 10 zeros, I'm still going to win, right? Because I'm still making a little bit of improvement, and I'm feeling good about myself. You have the endorphin release, so sometimes checking a box is the way to go. It's just that if you can be even better than that, you perform better.
100%.
Yeah.
It's really what I find with running. I mean, every day I have like a discussion with myself, like how I'm going to run a day. It's not going to feel that great. I just did back squat. But doing what I can, whether it's a 50% of a run that I would do normally, I still get that done. It still releases, I don't know what you said,
Endorphins.
Yeah. Whatever the feel good is,
Right.
It makes me feel good about myself.
Right. Yeah, that runner's high, they call it. We're getting a PR. Before we started, you even posed some questions or things you want to talk about. Anything we haven't covered, anything on your agenda? You have some questions about coaches in high school and college? You said our kids soft today, our coaches soft, our parents soft. I'm like, what's a big question for me to answer for the whole world?
Yeah, do you you've coached a lot of athletes over the years. Do you think strength coaches in high schools or even colleges, from what you see, are they taking the best approach they can to reach an athlete? Is putting the expectation of you need to get to college ball, you need to get to that collegiate level, the best way to do it, the best thing to put in a young athlete's mind? Or is it, hey kid, like, football isn't everything in life.
Mm-hmm.
You have to grow to be the best man you can be a long time down the road. As
Sure.
a dad, as a potential future husband, like, is that what's, I guess, the main pillar of training your athletes? Or is it, all right, man, like, the only thing you got in life is football. Like, that's all you need to be thinking about every single day you wake up.
But that's a big one, Coy. And luckily, my answer to almost every question is it depends.
Yeah.
Right. So 7% of kids play college sports and 2% play D1. So everyone that comes in my gym is not going to play in college. And we have a higher percentage rate than that, but the ones that actually come to a gym outside of the school, they're a bit more disciplined and motivated. So my sample size is skewed. And as an athlete, I would say me myself, I use that term loosely. Like, I was somewhat athletic at some things, most recently in powerlifting and strongman. And with my numbers at my age, in mid-40s, compared to the rest of the United States, I'm pretty legit. And compared to the strongman world, I was maybe a C-plus guy, right in the middle of the average, probably a little below. Only won a few events, never won first place in a total contest, qualified for nationals, but there's, like, most people were stronger. And when I stopped at 45, I broke my foot, tore ligaments in my wrists, had 2 discs that were bulging, then added it all together and had a blood clot. Your body said it's time to retire. And I didn't look back, and I don't look back now thinking, boy, I can't believe I didn't qualify and win. I know that I ate all the food, I slept a ton, I lifted as heavy as I could, I surrounded myself with the people, and for me at that time, that's what I was wanting to do. And I got to the best version of me in that realm. And it was pretty average in that realm, and I'm cool with that. I like being the better version of myself, which is still totally flawed, and constantly improving and moving towards that. I'm happiest if I'm just getting a little bit better. I'm getting a little bit better. So when kids come in, we try to get them a little bit better. We want to move them correctly. We want them faster. We want them stronger, sure. Even in dealing with Jax and Maddie and Sam, my 3 kids, I always post it to them, and I post it to anybody that comes in the gym. I don't care what your why is. I care that you have one. And as you, Coy, evolved from going from the National Guard and thinking, hey, maybe I want more, and you went to the Rangers, it evolves over time. And when you said, I liked running a little bit, I liked a little bit more, well, now we're doing a 50-mile race. So for some athletes, at some point, there's a switch when it says, hey, this is fun, but I really want to play varsity. Or I'm good at varsity, I want to be all conference. Or, you know what, I want to play in college. Or I want to take this as far as I can. And I will never know that for them. But if they come to us and say, I want this, I'll probably say, are you sure? Or do you even know what that entails? Because it's painful. But if that's what you want, we will push you towards that. But if you're just trying to be better, or I got one kid that came to me, his parents simply wanted him to move correctly and not get hurt. Cool. That's what you want. We'll give you that and get you there. But you take all these parallels in life lessons that hopefully it ingrains in your identity so that later and throughout your life, one, you look to get better, you're comfortable in your own skin, you know what it means to be strong, not bullied, be able to handle some pain, some rejection, you have a bad conversation with your spouse or your boss, you can handle that, and you can keep pushing to get better, but you might not be the Bill Gates, right? You might not be the Warren Buffett, you might not be the Michael Jordans, but you're just being the best version of you. And then what comes back to me is that we all pass away at some point. So it's what impact do you leave next on your legacy with those that are important to you, your kids. So if we can use these struggles to get them to be able to handle that and have those mental PRs, I'm easily as happy and as proud of those instances than that whether they played, D1 basketball.
Yeah, I think it's important. I've never coached an individual. I've never drawn out a plan to get them to where they wanted to be. But I think it's important as a coach and as a person that's being coached is to take advantage of what the training is doing to you mentally. Take advantage of the lessons that you're learning. There's a lot of times that Dustin taught me a lot of things without him realizing that he's teaching me a lot of things. I fail at a weight, or I fall and hit my face on a box that I'm trying to jump onto. There's a lot of people. No, but it happens a lot. But especially when you can't jump like me. But to walk back up to the same thing that you just failed at, and to complete it because someone, I wouldn't say forced you, but inspired you to do it.
Believed in you a little bit.
Yeah, you learn from that. And it's important to take that lesson and apply it to the rest of your life. Just figuring out how to do something that's hard, something that you've never done before, something like you're stepping up to the plate to try things over and over again until you do get them done or until you do complete your goal.
Tremendous value. The ability to strain.
Yeah.
Is king. We had you strain once. that one session? You know what I'm talking about?
I don't
You
recall.
don't remember? Yeah. It was night of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, or the morning of the Super Bowl afterwards.
So the Super Bowl ended. I can't recall the year
Um,
because you were already in the National Guard and you're out of football, and you're talking about going to get your Ranger tab.
it was 2018.
There it is. And so I talked with Daniel Skidmore. Remember him?
Yep.
Yeah, he is high up with GoRuck. He's he's in the Air Force.
Yeah, I think. I don't know what.
I thought Special Forces in the Air Force, or the
Yeah,
equivalent.
He's a dude.
He's a
I'll tell you
dude.
that.
He's a dude, right? And then Chris Cutshaw, he's another former Ranger, and I consulted with them about what you said about being tired and hungry and uncomfortable, and we were looking to simulate some level of training like that, so you would have a reference point when you left and say, "Hey, not that training with Jim's team at Unbreakable is the equivalent, but by no means. But if you could strain under this circumstance, you could probably have a better shot of handling it later." And I always say confidence comes from reps. So can we give Coy one big rep? And Coy said, "Yeah." And probably said, "Fuck yeah."
I just said yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I texted you, and I think I said, be at the gym by 1 in the morning, and then Mikey will be taking care of you first from 1 to 3. Well, we just said Mikey will be taking care of you first, right? And you showed up in boots, and were you wearing fatigues? No. Shirt?
Yeah, shirt and shorts.
Shorts and your military boots.
Yeah.
Okay. And so how'd that go with Mike?
Honestly, I don't remember too much of being with Mike. I'll just tell you about Dustin.
Well, if you forget Mike, I remember what we told him to do. 1, get you wet. So we stuck you in the shower. So that you're wet and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And he kept pulling out a whiteboard. On each whiteboard was a different WOD. And you would do a WOD, and all the whiteboards were turned over against the wall. So you would do a WOD, and then he'd give you a break, and then you turn over another whiteboard to do another WOD. Right? And then after a while, you're like, oh, man, hey, we're almost done. And Mikey just went and got more whiteboards. And we did that off and on for 2 hours. And then Dustin came in because I know Mike's directive was be kind to Coy, talk to him nicely, offer him an out, and say, hey, anytime you want to stop, no big deal. And it was real comforting. And then Dustin showed up from 3 to 5. How'd that go?
Yeah, so I'd just step back a little bit. I think for anyone who wants to do special operations, they have to understand that there's a game that you play. There's roles that instructors have follow to implement certain amounts of stress. I knew that. I know that now. So it's important to know how to play the game. And when Mike was there, I quickly understood that, okay, the workouts are going to be on these whiteboards. There's a few here. Okay, I completed these. He went and got more. So in my mind, there's an unlimited amount of whiteboards because he can essentially just keep going to get more whiteboards. So essentially, I'm going to be working out until someone tells me that it's time to stop working out and you can go home now.
Right. You're secure and you're good.
Yeah, the goal's accomplished, the mission's over. So in my mind, I'm going to stay there until that happens. And up until then, when they say you can quit, it's okay. It is okay if you quit. I'm not going to, because that would just make me a quitter. I understand that game and I understand how to play along. and I also understand how to put forth the effort that's basically gonna enable me to go quote unquote forever. Now, that was my mindset when Mikey was there. Um, Dustin showed up, and the difference between Dustin and Mike is that me and Dustin had a relationship. He had trained me many days before that. We have had good days, we've had bad days. I've yelled at him, he's yelled at me. More the latter on that one, but but
He's
we
more in
had
your face. He's more intense. He's louder.
we had a relationship,
Sure.
and he would say things to me during that 2 hours that because it was coming from him, it would get under my skin because I know that this guy knows me. It's no longer a game. It's no longer someone that doesn't know you, someone that doesn't care about you is talking to you anymore. It's someone, it's like maybe your brother's talking to you, maybe your dad's talking to you. It's that relationship aspect that what came out of his mouth, it got under my skin. So then those 2 hours are a little bit more difficult. There's on the assault bike, okay? He says to go for a minute, I think it was. And I went for a minute and I got a set amount of calories. I think I got like 22, 25, something like that. And he told me to hop off and then go do something else. And I came back on the assault bike. So as soon as I got back on the assault bike, I was like, okay, I'm going to keep doing this until he says stop. So let's do something that's going to enable me to go for a long time. Maybe take it down just a notch. So I get a little bit less calories. That didn't go well, because now I basically lied, didn't give the best effort the first time, like there's, and it gets more personal.
So he's calling you out for not putting out.
Yeah, and he's
calling out your manhood.
And he's attacking my values, saying I don't have any integrity. It makes it personal.
Attacking your last name.
Yeah, 100%.
100%, yeah. And if you're going to quit on this, you're going to quit on your family, you're going to quit on everybody around you.
Yeah, I think that was the 2 hours that really it was a huge growing point for me the night was. I've done 10 times harder things since then.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the first time that things aren't going to go the way I want them to. I'm not going to have complete control over what's happening. I can't just turn my brain off and go on autopilot. I have to have intention.
Be engaged.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. When I came in there, he had you so wound up because if he said do 100 flutter kicks, and if you did 101, he'd hammer you for attention to detail.
Yeah.
And then if you did it a little bit slower the next time, he'd hammered you for effort.
Yeah.
And then if you missed something else, you're not smart enough to pay attention.
Yeah, but that's real life. That's
right.
If flutter kicks mean nothing, going as hard as you can on an assault bike means nothing. But understanding how to zero the optic on your gun, doing it to the finest detail that you can, is going to influence where you think your round is going every time you pull the trigger. Understanding where you line up on a play at 3 by 2 yards off the last guy on the line of scrimmage, or 3 by 3 yards off, that's going to put you in the right spot for a certain coverage, to blitz on a certain time. It's attention to detail.
The extreme focus.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the book I was working on, I would refer to as inches, because sports are games of inches. But if you can walk by and you read a book that says inches, people keep walking around like, well, what the hell does that mean? So I'm still working on that. But essentially, the more critical the task, the more every little inch matters.
Yeah.
And if it's not a big task, and then it really doesn't.
Yep.
All right. So I roll in at 5, and I knew what Dustin's approach was going to be, and you're all pumped up, pissed, right? So I stick you back in the shower, so you get wet again, uncomfortable, and then so you're outside with the wheelbarrow and the sandbags. So it's wet, it's February, it's a little warm for February, it's like in the 30s and 40s. So we have these big sandbags. I said, put them all in the wheelbarrow, either one at a time, 10 at a time, I don't care. Walk them down the edge of the grass and back, which is about 400 meters there and back. And it was just essentially get this work done. And you load them all up to be efficient, and it's wet and muddy, and the first thing you do, you take 3 steps, and the whole thing tips over, and the mud gets stuck. And now you're out there, and you got to fix it.
I adjusted my plan.
Right, you sure did.
Yeah.
And the idea was, all right, it's like those long runs. I have these next 2 hours. I'm going to have him just be quiet in his head so that he can digest and just learn about himself, right? So we finished that task, and then the next task was essentially take all these kettlebells and dumbbells and move them around the perimeter of the gym, which is 10,000 square feet. So it's pick up 4 or 5 kettlebells or that roll light and carry them around, put them back. But still, you're in your head by yourself. I'm not yelling at you. And at right around 7:05, I come to you, and I'm like, hey, dude, you're secure, you're good. And you're like, what? I'm ready for what's next. And I knew you were. You just keep going at that point until there was nothing left, and there was still plenty in the tank. So I had Jen check you out and make sure you're good because she's a nurse. And then it's off to Flapjacks to get some food.
Yeah, I think I took a nap first, but yeah, there was just like a point of time where you're gonna get like annoyed of what's going on.
Sure.
But like you're talking about, I was at a point where I was like, it's just me and me. And I find that a lot on runs. There's no one really in control of what you're doing. Yeah, you have a task. I have to move these kettlebells or the sandbells. I have to get 10 miles in. The task is there, but if you just keep going, it's going to get done eventually. That's the mindset I was in at that point.
Right, just get whatever the next task is done, and you were fine. And then I think after you ate and slept, I think you even came back to the gym later that night to kind of loosen up.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of like, and this happens a lot in selection processes within the military. Like the tasks themselves are not hard. Each one of those workouts you kind of look at by themselves or even 2 or 3 together, they're not the most difficult thing someone's done in their life. But all of them together makes life suck for a little bit.
But just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's like
you can handle it.
Yeah, 100%. And you just have to understand that there is a game. And you also have to understand where intention needs to be implied. So.
And then the game's going to end.
Yeah, always.
Always. All right, those are a lot of great questions and discussions. I got my rapid fire questions. So just little answers. No need for discussion. But what do you listen to when you're training or you're running? Metallica. All right. Bucket list adventure you'd want to do.
10-day backpacking trip in Glacier.
Glacier National Park? Beautiful. Favorite sports movie?
Friday Night Lights.
Which one?
Friday Night Lights.
Friday Night Lights, yes. Yeah.
Clear eyes,
favorite
baby.
sport?
Football.
Athlete?
No comment.
Come on.
No, I like looking at the individual more than their athletic ability.
Sure.
And I'll go to the grave with Tim Tebow any day because of the man he is. So
why would you start with no comment?
I just would you call him an athlete anymore? I mean, he
Yeah.
ain't playing. But
How about a favorite book?
endurance.
Who's that by?
See the author. I think it's about Ernest Shackleton, but it's by Alfred Lansing.
Gotcha. Superhero movies.
Batman.
Favorite villain?
Probably the Joker.
He's awesome, right? Especially Heath Ledger.
He's very intelligent.
I love it. Favorite lift in the gym?
Front squat.
Favorite way to train?
Every day. I'm just joking. I like running.
All right. If you had $10 million, what job would you do?
Probably open up a gym.
Right here in Plainfield?
Probably not Plainfield.
Good.
Gotta find some better individuals to show up,
Right. Favorite quote?
I said it earlier. Lack of intentionality leads to a repetition of what is easiest. But also, I don't know who said that one or this one. You can't be upset about the results you didn't get with the work
The work you didn't do. All right. Anything else?
I got nothing. This is fun.
That's a good
My
time.
first time.
Yeah. We've been doing these for years. Hey, Coy, appreciate you coming on. Come down to the library. Anyone else that's listening, you can reach out to us at info@athlete-builder.com. And then we'll see you guys next time.